Hello, I'm Keith Clements, and it's my turn today to share a thought with you. As we head towards the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, there are a lot of commemorations being planned. Some of them have taken place already. Yesterday, April the 9th, was the anniversary of the death of Pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Barely a month before VE Day, he was aged just 39. A Lutheran pastor and outstanding theologian, from his youth onwards he was deeply involved in the Church's international movement for unity and peace. Even before Hitler's coming to power in 1933, he was warning the churches against the Nazi ambition to replace the Christian gospel with a religion of nationalism, racism, and militarism. Soon he was a leading voice in the Confessing Church, that body of Protestants who were opposed to the Nazifying of the Christian gospel. For some years, he directed an underground seminary, training new pastors for what would be a costly ministry under the swastika. When war came in 1939, he took a step almost unheard of for a Christian pastor. He joined the underground network of conspirators actually aiming to overthrow Hitler and replace him with a non-Nazi government. Using his international church contacts, his role was to convey secretly to churches and governments overseas the nature of the conspiracy, in the hope that with a successful overthrow, the Allies would negotiate a peace. It was this conspiracy which led to the failed attempt on Hitler's life on July the 20th, 1944. It's always been a controversial point in the Bonhoeffer story. How could a Christian pastor who'd previously advocated non-violence join in a plot that would involve assassination? A hard question. But given that he knew more than most the enormity of the Nazi crimes, especially against the Jews, he believed that not to do anything would make him even more guilty. On suspicion of anti-government activities, he was arrested in April 1943. It was in prison in Berlin that he wrote his now famous Letters and Papers, asking, "Who is Jesus Christ for us today, in a world that seems to have outgrown religion?" He called for a church that would give up its privileges in society and become a community which, like Jesus himself, existed for others. After the failure of the plot on July the 20th, 1944, the full extent of Bonhoeffer's involvement in the conspiracy gradually became clear to his interrogators. Following several weeks in the Gestapo cellars in Berlin, he was transferred to Buchenwald concentration camp. There, at Easter 1945, he was put in a party of special prisoners being transported south. Hitler had given orders that anyone still alive who'd been involved in the conspiracy had to be eliminated before the Allied armies would reach them. So to Flossenburg death camp, close to the Czech border. On the evening of April the 8th, Low Sunday, a hasty trial was conducted. Bonhoeffer and 6 others were pronounced guilty of high treason and sentenced to be hanged next morning. It's now known just how barbaric were the executions. After being marched naked into the execution yard, hands tied behind their backs, subject to obscene mockery by the SS guards, the prisoners were hanged using a special device which ensured they were choked to death as slowly as possible. If, as we think, this was the ultimate in depravity, then there's a countersign of redemption, now in the shape of a plaque on the wall of the execution yard. Listing the 7 names, it states that in resistance to dictatorship and terror, these gave their lives for justice, freedom, and humanity. Inscribed on a small cross is 2 Timothy 1:7, indicating St. Paul's words, "For God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but rather a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline." Dietrich himself had written in his famous book Discipleship, "When Jesus calls us, he bids us come and die." His last known words to a fellow prisoner were, "This is the end, for me the beginning of life." To stand before that plaque in the Flossenburg execution yard is deeply moving and very challenging. What would I, or you, be prepared to risk or sacrifice, faced with the ultimate in human evil? Would we have kept our heads down in self-preservation? If we're honest, none of us can be sure how we would respond to the sort of test that Bonhoeffer and his comrades faced. The real question is, how are we stepping up to the challenges of injustice right here and now before they get any worse? For most of us, the risk of becoming unpopular is enough to deter us. So let's close with some words of Jesus, both of challenge and of promise. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. May we receive the spirit of power, love, and self-discipline for the living and the testing of these our days. A blessed Passiontide to us all.